I found out I wasn't invited to my own father's wedding from a beige envelope addressed to current resident. Inside was a stiff, polite note explaining that my presence might complicate the tone of the ceremony. Apparently, excluding his only daughter was the price of keeping things classy. What no one realized yet was that the same week I was quietly erased from his wedding. His future collapsed without him knowing I had anything to do with it. My name is Maribel Hart. I used to believe my father, Calvin, and I were close. After my mother died, something in him went quiet. He stopped calling as often. He stopped asking how I was doing. Then Elaine Whitmore appeared in his life, polished, charming, always smiling. Around her, I became the uncomfortable detail in the room. The daughter who reminded him of a past she didn't want included. Elaine never raised her voice. She didn't need to. She would say things like, "Maribel seems emotional," or "This new chapter might be easier without complications." Slowly, I felt myself being moved out of his world. When I opened that envelope, what hurt wasn't the wedding. It was the signature at the bottom. My father's handwriting. His choice. I sat on my bed holding the paper, reading the words again and again. I didn't call him. I didn't text. I didn't ask for an explanation. Something inside me went still. I realized then that I had been removed quietly, neatly, as if I were a problem to solve. So I stayed silent. Not because I agreed, but because I finally understood exactly where I stood. Elaine Whitmore did not arrive loudly. She arrived smoothly. At first, she was all warmth in public. Perfect hair, soft voice, polite smiles. People said my father looked happy again. I wanted to believe that. But in private, everything felt different. She never said she disliked me. She didn't have to. She used careful words. "Maribel seems unsettled," she would say. Or, "She gets emotional. This new chapter might be hard for her." Each sentence sounded gentle, but together they built a picture of me as a problem. Slowly, I noticed changes. Holidays were suddenly too busy. Family dinners became better another time. When I spoke about my mother, Elaine would change the subject, as if the past was an inconvenience she wanted erased. My father stopped bringing up old memories. He stopped asking me to come by. What hurt most was how quietly it happened. There were no fights, no scenes, just small decisions that pushed me further out. Elaine began talking about my father's business, about image and growth, about how everything had to look clean and controlled. I started hearing phrases like "not aligned" and "bad for the brand." Somehow, I became part of what didn't fit. I watched my father change without realizing he was being guided. He trusted her. He believed her version of me. Each time she framed me as unstable or difficult, he nodded, trying to protect his future. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I kept waiting for him to notice what was happening. But he never did. By the time I understood the pattern, I was already standing outside a life that used to be mine. My father used to be proud of what I did. When I first entered corporate work, he told everyone his daughter was the sharp one. I built a career in operations and investor relations, the quiet side of business where deals are checked before they are trusted. I learned how to read numbers, spot risk, and ask the questions that protect people from bad decisions. Over time, he stopped asking about my work. Elaine took up that space. She talked about vision, about turning my father's company into something bigger, cleaner, more impressive. She called herself a lifestyle consultant, always speaking in polished phrases that sounded important but said very little. Then one evening, during a small dinner I was still invited to, I heard a name that made me go still. An outside investor. A man whose deals I knew well. My job had crossed paths with his before. I had reviewed reports connected to his past ventures. I knew where numbers didn't match. I knew which partnerships carried hidden risk. Everyone at the table spoke with excitement. Elaine talked about growth, about how this investment would make everything possible. My father listened like a man who believed his future had just arrived. I realized something in that moment. They were making plans around a deal they did not understand. And the one person in that room who actually knew the truth about it was the daughter they no longer took seriously. I said nothing. Not because I was unsure, but because no one was listening to me anymore. My father had forgotten what I was capable of. And Elaine had no idea what she had just placed in front of me. The morning of the wedding was quiet in my apartment. No dress. No invitation. No place to go. I made coffee and sat by the window, watching the city move like it was any other day. I kept thinking about my mother, how she used to fix my hair before family events, how my father would stand in the doorway pretending not to care while watching us both. That life felt very far away. Somewhere across town, my father was standing in a perfect venue beside Elaine. Expensive flowers, clean white chairs, guests who spoke in low, confident voices. I knew the kind of people she invited: polished, powerful, useful. Among them was Graham Lockwood, the private investor everyone was whispering about. The man considering putting millions into my father's company. Elaine believed the wedding made her official. Wife. Partner. The woman who belonged in every future plan. I could picture her moving through the room, smiling, shaking hands, presenting herself as the center of everything my father was building. I did not feel angry. I felt clear. I walked through old photos on my phone that afternoon. My parents on the porch. My mother's laugh. My father holding my hand when I was small. That family was already gone. The wedding was just the final door closing. I did not wish to be there. I did not imagine stopping anything. I simply understood that what I had lost could not be begged back. That day was not about jealousy. It was about acceptance. They were building a future without me. And for the first time, I stopped trying to be part of something that no longer had space for who I truly was. I did not call Graham Lockwood because of the wedding. I did not call him because I was hurt. I contacted him the same way I contact anyone in my field, through a professional channel, using the same calm tone I always use when business is involved. He asked why I wanted to speak. I told him the truth. I had seen his name connected to a deal I recognized. He was polite, curious, careful. He did not mention my father. I did not bring him up either. Graham asked about risk, about projections, about whether leadership was stable. I answered the way I always do, slowly, clearly, without emotion. I explained where numbers were stretched. I pointed out areas that depended too much on perfect conditions. I spoke about internal pressure that could affect long-term decisions. I did not insult Elaine. I did not describe her behavior. I did not say a single word about the wedding, the envelope, or the way I had been pushed out. I stayed with facts. Only what I knew. Only what could be verified. There was a pause on the line. Then Graham thanked me. He said he appreciated honesty. He said he would take a closer look. When the call ended, I did not feel powerful. I did not feel satisfied. I felt quiet. For years, I had softened truth to protect my father. I had stayed silent to keep peace. But that protection was no longer mine to give. Not after being erased. Not after being dismissed. I did not lie. I simply stopped covering for people who no longer stood with me. And for the first time, I chose accuracy over loyalty. The changes were small at first. A meeting that was suddenly postponed. A call that never came back. A quiet pause where excitement used to be. Nothing collapsed in one moment. Things just stopped moving forward. Elaine began to tighten her grip on everything. She checked emails herself. She questioned numbers she had once accepted without reading. Her voice, once smooth, grew sharp. I heard from someone inside the company that she was blaming delays on staff, on accountants, on bad timing. There was always another reason, another person at fault. My father felt it too. He could sense something was wrong, but he could not see where it was coming from. He still believed the investment was close. He still trusted Elaine's confidence. But the energy around him changed. The certainty he had after the wedding started to thin. I stayed out of it. I did not ask questions. I did not step in. I did not warn anyone. I went to work, lived my life, and remained exactly where I already was, outside their world. Elaine tried to control what could not be controlled. Every delay made her more anxious. Every unanswered email made her more desperate. The future she had promised my father began to look fragile, like something built on perfect timing that no longer existed. There were no scenes. No shouting. Just pressure. I felt none of it directly. No one blamed me. No one mentioned my name. I was untouched, unseen, exactly as I had been since the envelope arrived. But I understood what was happening. When truth is allowed to stand on its own, it does not explode. It settles. It weighs. It slowly bends things that were never as strong as they appeared. Elaine's dream did not shatter in one loud moment. It cracked quietly, piece by piece. And I watched from a distance, knowing that I had not pushed anything. I had simply stepped aside and let reality move without me in its way. The news did not arrive with noise. There was no headline, no public statement, no dramatic moment. It came quietly, the way business decisions usually do. Graham Lockwood had decided not to move forward. The reason was simple and professional: unresolved internal concerns. That was all. Inside the company, everything shifted. The future Elaine had spoken about so confidently suddenly disappeared. Calls were returned with polite delays. Plans were under review. The certainty that had filled the room after the wedding drained away. Elaine did not take it well. Her calm broke. She began asking the same questions again and again, demanding answers no one could give her. She blamed timing. She blamed people. She blamed systems. But nothing brought the money back. The authority she had gained as the new wife vanished as quickly as it had arrived. My father was stunned. He had believed this investment was secure. He had trusted the promises made to him. Overnight, the world he thought he was stepping into looked unstable and uncertain. I heard about it from someone who used to work with me. A short message. One line. The investor walked. I sat there longer than I expected, phone in my hand, waiting for a feeling that never came. There was no excitement. No sense of victory. No satisfaction. What I felt was relief. Relief that I had not stayed silent to protect something that was already fragile. Relief that I no longer had to carry a truth that no one wanted to hear from me. Relief that the future built without me had revealed itself for what it was. Elaine's dream did not fall because of anger or revenge. It ended because it could not stand on reality. And for the first time since the envelope, I could breathe without holding anything inside. My phone rang late in the evening. When I saw my father's name, I stared at it for a long moment before answering. It had been months since we last spoke. His voice sounded tired, different from the confident man I used to know. He did not accuse me. He did not raise his voice. He only said, "I don't understand what happened. I need you to help me see it." So I told him. I spoke slowly. Simply. I explained how I was pushed aside in small ways. How I was described as emotional, unsettled, not aligned. How holidays became inconvenient. How my mother's name disappeared from our conversations. How I was treated like something that didn't fit into his new life. He was quiet for a long time. I told him about the envelope. About reading his signature at the bottom of the uninvitation. About how I did not fight it because I finally understood that I was no longer wanted in the space he was building. "I didn't know," he said softly. I answered honestly. "You didn't ask." There was a break in his voice then, something close to regret. He admitted he had trusted Elaine's words more than his own memories of me. He said he had believed she was protecting his future. Only now did he see that she had seen me as competition, not family. I did not comfort him. I did not attack him either. I just stayed with the truth. He said my name the way he used to, like he was trying to reach me across a distance he had created himself. For the first time in a long while, he understood what it had cost him. And I understood that some things, once signed away, cannot simply be taken back. Elaine could not hide it anymore. The calm woman everyone admired began to crack. She spoke faster. She grew sharp. When things did not go her way, she looked for someone to blame. And when she ran out of excuses, she turned to me. She told my father that I had always been difficult, that I was jealous, that I was manipulative. She said I wanted to hurt them. She tried to rewrite the past in a way that made her actions look necessary and mine look dangerous. For the first time, my father did not accept her version without question. He remembered what I had told him. The small exclusions. The quiet comments. The way I had been slowly pushed aside without ever being confronted directly. He began to see that what Elaine called protection was really control. Their conversations turned tense. The marriage, once built on appearance and ambition, started to bend under pressure. Elaine demanded loyalty. She wanted him to choose her story over reality. But the more she tried to shape the truth, the clearer it became that something was wrong. She was obsessed with how things looked, with what people would think, with keeping the image perfect, even when everything underneath was unstable. That obsession became her weakness. I did not argue with her. I did not defend myself in front of her. I stayed where I had always been, outside the fight, grounded in what I knew was true. Elaine did not lose everything because someone attacked her. She lost it because the world she built depended on control, not honesty. When pressure came, there was nothing solid to hold it together. And my father finally saw what I had endured in silence. Not through drama, but through the quiet collapse of a life that had never been real. My father and I did not return to each other all at once. There were no emotional speeches. No sudden forgiveness. We spoke carefully, like people learning how to walk in a space that had once been familiar and now felt uncertain. Sometimes we talked about work. Sometimes about my mother. Sometimes about nothing important at all. Elaine slowly disappeared from our lives. There was no announcement. No final argument. She simply stopped being part of the future my father was trying to rebuild. The image she had created could not survive without control, and once that control was gone, so was she. I did not celebrate what happened. I did not feel proud of the loss that followed her. What I felt was quiet, a kind of peace I had not known when I was trying to fit into a place that never truly wanted me. My father apologized more than once. Not with big words, but with small changes. He listened when I spoke. He asked how I was doing. He stopped letting others define who I was to him. I did not rush to forgive. I did not pretend nothing had happened. I accepted what could be rebuilt and let go of what could not. I learned something through all of it. Revenge does not have to be loud. It does not require exposure or cruelty or spectacle. Sometimes it is simply stepping out of a role you were never meant to carry. Sometimes it is choosing truth over loyalty when loyalty asks you to disappear. I did not take anything from anyone. I took myself back. And in doing that, I finally reclaimed the one thing I had lost without realizing it, my dignity. If this story moved you, stay with us for more real-life lessons about boundaries, business ethics, and emotional resilience. These stories aren't just drama. They show how quiet choices shape outcomes. Subscribe for honest narratives that teach self-respect, critical thinking, and how to protect your future without losing yourself.